Setting, another element of fiction, refers to when and where a narrative takes place. So this means literally where is the narrative happening, and it may be a single location or it may be a series of locations that change over the course of the narrative. It also refers to the time period that the narrative takes place in. So that's the time of day, the time of year, the moment in history. Are we in the past? Is this a narrative that's happening in the present? Does it have some sort of futuristic component to it? Setting can also be useful in helping a writer to develop a character. If we think about Kate Chopin's The Story of an Hour, we don't get much description of setting until about the middle of the story. And in the middle of the story, we get a description of the home or the room that Mr. Mallard finds herself in. The room that she's retreated into in order to grieve the news of the loss of her husband is described as follows. There stood, facing the open window, a comfortable, roomy armchair. Into this she sank, pressed down by a physical exhaustion that haunted her body. Right, so that description of a room with a big open window, it's described as comfortable. It has a roomy chair. This gives us a suggestion that the character is content. She's somebody who is comfortable. She is not wanting things. She probably comes from a middle class background. She's comfortable. As the story continues, we get a little bit more setting. And in this case, setting is not informing us of character, but it's helping to build the theme. It's helping to connect to or to develop the theme. And it's also beginning to suggest a shift in tone. The rest of the setting, and let me just locate us in the story. In the first half of the story, Mrs. Mallard gets the news that her husband has been in an accident. She's distraught. She's upset. She retreats to this back room. And as she's ruminating or thinking about the loss of her husband, she's standing before this window and she describes what she sees. And what she sees is she could see in the open square before her the housetops of trees that were all aquiver with new spring life. The delicious breath of wind was in the air. The delicious breath of rain was in the air. In the street below, a peddler was crying his wares. The notes of a distant song where someone was singing reached her faintly, and countless sparrows were twittering in the eaves. There were patches of blue sky showing here and there through the clouds that had met and piled above one another in the west facing her window. So this is the image that we get is one of spring, right? There's a lot of activity going on. And spring is always something that suggests like a rebirth, a newness, a new opportunity. So we get the description of the trees, the birds singing, the leaves sort of shaking or quivering, the noise in the street. Really, again, is suggesting like a lifeblood or another sense of vitality, liveliness. And it's in this moment, this setting, that she begins to shift the way she's thinking about the loss of her husband and not mourning over it, but suddenly being excited that the loss of him provides a new opportunity or a new life for her. Kate Chopin is very artfully using setting in order to indicate this shift in tone and this shift in the character. And it's through the description of setting here that we start to get at the theme of the story.